Addicted to addiction and struggling with self-acceptance. I came from a traumatized childhood where I was always wrong. I could never do anything right. I was just not meant to exist. Like, I was perpetually put down. I was perpetually blamed for everything. And it was impossible for me to do something to please anybody. Like, I couldn't please anybody. Nobody was happy with me. And, on top of that, I was used, and I was just blamed and put down and really made to feel like a slave, basically. Well, through that process, I learned that I needed to change myself in order to please others. And I also needed to change myself in order to please myself. So fortunately for me, I grew up in Southern California, where we have a very vibrant self-help community with lots of bookstores and places where you can talk about such things. And I'm very blessed to have had that. I'm really glad that I came from such a progressive place. Every place is progressive now, though. I'm assuming that the whole world is kind of much more progressive now than ever. But I came from this place where we had self-help this and that, and there were seminars and there was groups that would meet. I've done everything. I've sat in a room full of people where we all just made sounds that we would agonize, or we would get happy, or just making sound without words. And I've done things like all kinds of different body work with hands-on and different kinds of group meditations and things, so that I could change myself, because I knew that something was wrong with me and that I needed to change myself and that I needed to get better. So I changed myself a lot, and it seemed like the more that I changed myself for myself to improve my coping ability, the less pleased that people seem to become. And so I internalized that on some level. Through the years, you mature and you stop caring as much about what people think, but it still affects you. When people disapprove of you, even if you become just even if you're just like almost there but not quite. Like I've been almost there but not quite for years, and I swear I'm turning a corner right now by talking about all of this on a video. It's helping me a lot, this kind of journaling. So it seemed like people were, less and less happy with me, and I was happier with myself, and I was feeling more comfortable because I could cope with things better. But lately, I would say in the last 10 years, I hit a really hard patch, a really super hard crisis. And in this crisis was a lot of confusion and a lot of delusion and a lot of paranoia and a lot of me really becoming overly sensitized to the inputs that were coming in from the environment and from the people around me, and really feeling responsible for everyone's feelings and for everyone's thoughts. And just feeling responsible for everyone, even the people who didn't like me, even the people who treated me bad, even the people who ignored me or anything, just feeling responsible for everything. I put so much pressure on myself. It's incredible. So I got to this point where I realized that it seemed like people would be happier if I would harm myself in some kind of way. So I started practicing self-harm, which was the complete opposite of what I had been prior to this last 10 years. This 10-year period has been more, not more about self-harm, but more about self-harm than the previous time, but not completely about self-harm, because I have done also a lot of self-improvement. As my videos will show, you can see a lot of the healthy things that I do as well. But I had developed this pattern of self-harm and feeling like that's an answer. That self-harm itself is an answer to the question, how can I be happier in life? You know, how can I have more peace? How can I have more personal space? And how can I have more growth? And how can I live my life in more prosperity and greatness? So I started self-harming because that seemed to be getting me the results that I wanted. And the simple fact, you know, looking at it now, I realize that people will place that kind of pressure on you to harm yourself if they see you do it. You know, it's like, you know, go punch yourself in the face. Nah, just kidding. Unless you're gonna do it. That's really what it is. You know, like people ain't shit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I really am kidding. No, I don't know how I feel about people right now. I don't know, but my experience with people has been just terribly debilitating and disappointing in these last 10 years. And I'll have to work through that later. But right now I'm just dealing with myself. But yeah, you know, people saw me struggling and they just put more pressure on me, like to try to break me in a way. And so I started this pattern of self-harm, and you know, I never had an addiction, okay, of any kind. I don't have an addictive personality. My mom doesn't have an addiction. My dad doesn't have an addiction. We don't really have that in our family. So addiction was something unknown to me. I've used every drug. I've enjoyed every single drug except for peyote and mescaline. I've never done those drugs, or DMT, but I wouldn't mind doing them, but I've never done them. But I've used every drug when it shows itself. You know, if somebody's like, I got this drug, want to do it with me? Yeah, okay, you know. But I've never had a drug habit. I've never had an alcohol habit. Not really. I mean, I think I got addicted to the idea of having an addiction. So what I'm saying is I got addicted to addiction, like addiction was going to be my salvation or something, all the way to the point where I even told my therapist that I guess I'll just be an alcoholic. Alcoholism is going to be my best friend. Alcohol is my best friend and it's my only friend. That was something that I said to her last week, actually 2 weeks ago. And she came back the following week. She said, can we talk more about what you said, you know, about alcohol being your only friend and your best friend? And it made me think about how like weak that sounded, you know, like really, like, is that really how I feel? And I still didn't get it. I still couldn't figure it out at that moment. But what I now realize is that I've been addicted to the idea of addiction and just trying to pick up an addiction. So, I have been for this week, it's been food. So I've like stocked up on sweets, you know, and chips and snacks and sodas and stuff. And I've been indulging in that, which makes me miserable. I'm never more miserable than when I'm having all these foods that are creating inflammation in my system. I hate inflammation. I hate when my blood sugar spikes and I experience pain in my joints or any kind of inflammation or pain or stuff like that, because I know how to be without it. And when you've been without it and you've lived without it and you get that feeling tone, then you really cannot, you just can't tolerate having inflammation of any kind. So then I have to go. So I was going from junk food to alcohol to cannabis to other hard drugs and then pharmaceutical drugs and back to alcohol and then the food again. And I was just rotating my addictions. And it's just become really unsustainable. And I realized that the reason that I was doing all of that is because of my trauma. It's because of my trauma and my fear. Because I've been living with a lot of fear of pain, right? Because that's all we are afraid of. We're afraid of suffering. We don't want to experience pain and suffering. We only want to experience pleasure if we can help it. But I saw addiction as a way of avoiding pain and of escaping pain and just going into some kind of alternate state where I didn't have to experience pain. And it kind of, you know, it was a solution at the time when I needed it, because like I said, I was putting so much pressure on myself to make everybody happy. And so the only thing that mattered to me was people's happiness, and people were happier when I was putting myself down and harming myself, because addiction is a form of self-harm, and people were responding in a more pleasant way towards me. So I felt validated, like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. But actually, I can't stand the inflammation. I don't like the inflammation that comes from drinking alcohol. I don't like the inflammation that comes from eating cake and chips, you know, and all of that. So so now I can face the problem. You know, I have some deep-seated fear-based, trauma-based stuff inside that's in need of release. I need to release it, and I think the first step in releasing it is acknowledging it and just having a good hard look at it. You know, it's uncomfortable, and it makes me nervous a little bit. You know, it makes me a little scared because, oh no, you know, what if the disasters that I'm imagining in my mind all come true because I'm being honest? Oh my, you know, that's so scary. I don't want these bad things to happen. You know, it's all about what you don't want, and it's all about being in avoidance, basically. And I've just reached a point where I can't feel comfortable in avoidance anymore. I don't feel like an honest human being. I don't feel like a good person. You know, I'm starting to feel like a low life or something. I want to face my stuff. I want to face the pain. I want to face my fear, most of all. What am I really afraid of? Am I afraid of being whole? Because I think so. I think that's the big fear, is that I won't have a problem anymore. And I've actually been having fear this week because I've been having these epiphanies just like crazy. But especially the main big epiphany that I had was that I was the one who was creating my victimhood in my mind. You know, psychologically, I was creating a situation of victimhood for myself. And that was the biggest revelation of all. But sometimes it makes me feel a little, well, not at this moment, because I also overcame the insecure feeling that I had, because it was like a security blanket, you know, like victimhood became my safe place. You know, that became my security. And I could relate to, you know, I could hold on to that. That would protect me. That victimhood would protect me. And if anybody was around me, then I could just throw that in their face, you know, well, don't attack me because I'm a victim. You know, it just became sort of an unconscious codependency. It was a dependency that I had on being a victim. And that dependency created other dependencies, like having a need for some kind of addiction, which was a false need because I never had that before. I swear, I'm not an addict. I don't have addictive behaviors. So this is all man-made. This is all in my head, you know, and I'm just creating these patterns for myself where I felt like I couldn't be authentic. I was too afraid to be my really true, authentic self because I was too afraid of being attacked. I was too afraid. I'm mostly afraid of being attacked. I'm mostly afraid of being misunderstood. I'm afraid of that. I am. I'm afraid of being exposed, you know, like my real self being exposed without the mask, you know, without the facade that I'm just this broken, crippled, you know, victim. And I swear I watched my mom play this role her whole life. I watched her play out so much of this her whole life. Now, she didn't have the victimhood consciousness. I won't say that she had that, but she definitely had she created this defensive mechanism for herself that was her security blanket. She was very defensive, and she still is very defensive. You know, you can't get through that. You can't break through her defenses because she's not like me. Like, I'm introspective and I look at things and try to examine, you know, am I being defensive? What's wrong with why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? Why am I not successful? What is blocking me? My mom is not like that. She's just like, I'm right no matter what. I know I'm right. I know what's best for me and nobody can tell me anything. That's how she is. She doesn't examine things, you know, that I know of. She might inside of her mind in her private time, but I've never seen her do it. You know, she's always been very attached to her ways, and she's an Aries. So that is an Aries trait. Aries people are very, you know, stubborn like that. So I watched her be that way her whole life and really just be in denial that there was a problem, even though she was miserable and she didn't have any relationships. It was impossible to have relationships. And I've been struggling so much with relationships, and I'm like, you know, today I'm just rolling it all out. Well, guess what? You know, my mom could not have a relationship all these years. It was impossible. She never had a healthy relationship ever. I've never seen her have a healthy relationship. It's because she was holding on to that pain and to that trauma and to that hurt, you know, that she had experienced. And she wouldn't examine it. She wouldn't pull it out and look at it and start unraveling it. but instead she used it to feed her, and to feed her ego. And it became kind of a destructive ego towards people. So people really couldn't be around her without getting hurt. And I've been developing those same things, but like I said, I'm not like her. So I'm like, oh no, this ain't me. I'm not the defensive one who's gonna go around like a crazy killer whale and just like be hurting the people, who want to be my friend or whatever. That's not me, So I've been examining all of this to see, well, what am I really? And I realized that, okay, so that I have adopted those same patterns, and it has been painful, but mine is the opposite of hers. So I'm a reflection of her in the opposite. So instead of hurting people deliberately, I deliberately try to make people feel good, and that hurts people too. Because you can't be trying to directly make somebody feel good if you feel lousy. It's condescending, and it's disrespectful, and it undermines the individual as well. So there's so much psychology that has been unraveling in my mind for these past couple days, and I'm just so grateful because I never thought I would get past it. I couldn't see anything on the horizon, but something just snapped. It was just like a turning point. So never give up. If you're frustrated, if you got problems of any kind, and if it's psychological issues, that can be healed. Your mind can heal itself. Now, if you have a physical problem, that can also be healed. I think most physical problems can be healed. But if it's something that's mostly coming from your mind, and I think most of our experience is coming from our mind, that can be healed. So just hang in there and just, be willing to receive the heavenly manna that the Father wants to endow upon you, so that you might be able to unravel all of the mystery of your existence and the reasons for things, and what is it really that you really are. What is your true identity, and what is trauma based, because that's really where we have to make the distinction. Well, is this really me, or is this coming from some subconscious reason that I don't recognize at this time? So much of our behaviors are coming from unconscious places and subconscious places that we are not aware of. So don't give up, and I wish you the best of luck on your healing journey.